Okay, look, Luke and I beat Halo 1, 2, 3, ODST, and Reach without shooting. We walked the Halo 1 and 3 Warthog runs. I mean, we even beat Halo 2 and Reach without walking. But there's one thing that we just refuse to attempt because it is way too difficult for us. I think you guys know what we're talking about here. Halo Legendary Lasso, one of the most iconic challenges in all of Halo history. Seriously, you have to complete Halo campaigns on Legendary with every single skull enabled. Now, if you don't know what that means, Legendary is the hardest difficulty, and the skulls are these extra little game modifiers that make your game significantly harder when doing challenges. And yeah, there's achievements for getting all of the Halo campaigns completed lassoed. So today we thought it would be really interesting to take a look back at all of Bungie's Halo games and pick out the hardest lasso levels of all time. Now for this video, we teamed up with Silver from the Halo Completionist, who handpicked the most difficult Halo lasso levels to complete. Seriously, if you're not already subscribed to Halo Completionist, make sure you do. There's a link in the description down below. But he offers guides for not only every single Halo lasso level, but he also provides guides for some of the other challenging Halo achievements. Throughout this year, he'll also be going back and updating all of his lasso guides as the Halo games come out on PC, so you can watch in higher resolution and get some new tips along the way. So huge thank you to him for all of the help with this video, and let's go ahead and go all the way back to Halo Combat Evolved. Now, this first Halo game didn't actually have skulls in it at launch, but when it was re-released in 2011 in Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, they added skulls into the game, thus making Lasso another challenge that you can complete here. And matter of fact, Halo CE is actually probably the hardest lassoed Halo, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to be looking at the hardest ones from this specific game, even though the levels overall in this campaign are probably more difficult than the other Halos. So first, let's recap the skulls in Halo CE. First, we have Iron Skull, which means respawning is disabled, so if you're in single player, you have to restart to the beginning of the level, and if you're in co-op, you have to restart to the last checkpoint if you or your teammate dies. Mythic Skull gives enemies increased health. Boom Skull makes explosion radiuses doubled. Foreign and Famine make it so you can't pick up enemy dropped weapons, and you only have half the amount of ammo when finding new weapons. Fog and Malfunction disable your motion tracker and a random piece of your HUD every time you respawn. Recession makes it where each shot you shoot takes up 2 bullets instead of 1, so as you can tell, ammo is going to be scarce already. Eye Patch disables that good old auto aim feature, and Black Eye requires you to punch an enemy to regain any health. Yeah, this one's gonna be a doozy. So jumping into Halo Combat Evolved, Truth and Reconciliation really stands out as one of the most difficult levels in Halo CE Lasso. You're really gonna run into an ammo issue right away because of those skulls that limit how much ammo you can find, along with how much it takes just to shoot a couple of shots. Besides all of the narrow corridors, which actually puts you in a really tough place with a lot of enemies and not a place to go for cover, this level is actually prone to having several different firefight sections along the way. And when you're in these firefight sections, you pretty much are stuck just holding out as long as you can, which can leave you very vulnerable when you're kind of having to just hold out and wait for the next wave of enemy to move in. And when you're limited on your health, the enemies literally are stronger than ever. It can really be difficult and just comes down to a skill-based challenge here rather than an over-the-top strategy you can use. But if you're struggling with Truth and Reconciliation, just wait till you get to everyone's favorite level, the Library. Now honestly, you can die in this level a lot because there's a ton of enemies, and at times they can actually shoot, which puts you at a big disadvantage where you'll see your shields start to eat away, and getting close enough to melee puts you in a rough spot when you're fighting against the Flood. The Flood also later in the level will pile up at the end of some hallways that can make things difficult if you don't take it slow enough. But honestly, just the length of this level is hard enough as it is, but tie that to crazy things like Flood with rocket launchers, or just large open hallways with very aggressive Flood forms, and sections where you're literally cornered waiting for 343 Guilty Spark to open the door, where you have infinite numbers of Flood constantly spawning. You're really set up for a grand fun time. But then right after surviving the heat of the Library, you're thrown right at it again with 2 betrayals. I mean, just getting to the open area where all of the enemies are puts you in a rough spot alone. The fact that there are so many different enemies, there are wraiths, there are elites, it's literally just complete chaos. Of course, the Halo Completionist just kind of bypassed all of that using a really interesting trick. But some of the indoor rooms in the level can be really hard as your health likely will be limited, and you're gonna see elites that are quick to aggro you and grunts that are quick to just blow themselves up along with you in the process. And remember, the boom skull is activated, so blast radiuses are double, making it where you're more susceptible to get hit by damage, but then you also can't seem to get close enough to regenerate your health by meleeing a grunt. And of course, as you progress through the level, you're gonna see grunts that have fuel rod guns, because why not? And then there's even flood tied in with this level as well, which just gives you a whole extra challenge, giving you those PTSD flashbacks to the library. But hey, if you made it this far into Halo Combat Evolved, maybe you have what it takes to push your way through and complete it, but then you have a whole nother challenge when you get onto Halo 2. And Halo 2 just slaps you in the face as soon as you start the game up in Cairo Station. And to make matters even better, Halo 2 has the most amount of skulls in any main Halo game, so you just get all of the possible lovely things that can be thrown at you for a campaign run through. Besides pretty much most of the main ones from Halo 1 returning for Halo 2, you also have to deal with a couple of new ones. The Swarm Skull makes it so that hunters do double damage and have triple the health. So Angry makes it so that brutes will explode whenever they're enraged, as if they're like a frag grenade. Tie that with the Boom Skull, you're in for a fun time. They come back, make it so that reanimated flood combat forms are much stronger than before, and Jacked, which means that players can only operate ground vehicles by hijacking it first. The Assassin Skull, which makes all enemies invisible, cause why not? We also get the lovely Blind Skull, making it so you can't even see your own heads-up display. Catch, making it so that enemies throw more grenades. Ghost, which makes AI characters no longer flinch. Sputnik, which alters the mass and gravity on several items, making it so that you can go much higher when doing grenade jumps or reacting to explosions, but also can make some crazy things happen at the same time. Oh, and if you thought we're done, we're not done yet, because you also have That's Just Wrong, which makes it so enemies can hear you from further distances, and Thunderstorm, which makes it so that enemies typically are a higher rank, and the Whippopotamus Skull, which makes AI more observant. Now, one skull does come into play that can actually help you out, which is the Envy Skull, which trades the Master Chief's flashlight with some active camo, which can be really helpful, obviously, for this run. But oh boy, this one is one heck of a run. Cairo Station right away will take you likely forever to actually complete. You have to watch out for things like double sword elites, and honestly, elites shoot so fast that they can just get your shield down very quickly, and if you try to get close enough to punch them, they can just pull out an energy sword. There's firefight sections where a drop ship comes in and drops enemies off, and you have to somehow manage to hold out. You have buggers that you can barely see, and somehow you're expected to shoot them down before they can take your shields out. And then later on, there's jetpack elites, which are just very hard to shoot because they're flying around and you can't see them well, and they just seem to always know where you are at all times. Tie that all together, that with the main strategy to get through this level relies on you having Sergeant Johnson in the right place at the right time, making this one of the longest challenges. It can be quite the journey for sure. But if we're gonna press on, you're gonna get into a little bit more trouble once you get around to the level Regret. Now, Regret offers a whole new challenge, as not only do you have sections where you kind of are just stuck in a single place, but you're actually introduced to a lot of long-range sections with snipers who can just smell you and insta-kill you, and then you're also contrasted with a lot of tight quarters areas that has both elites and hunters that are just really hard to deal with at close quarters. I mean, your best bet in some areas is to try to run past the enemies before they absolutely annihilate you, but along the way you also have to watch out because there's a lot of elites that will aggro you and make it way harder to just survive for a couple of seconds if you're trying to just get your footing back. Tie that all together, that this is one of the longest levels in Halo 2 just to typically play through, but also the enemies everywhere aggro you. You have to deal with honor guards. There's a boss fight at the end that actually is hard on LASO, but if you can manage to make it through, then you're getting to the ultimate and most difficult level of all of LASO. And that definitely takes us into the Grave Grind. Yeah, the level Gravemind is definitely going to be a grind of sorts, and Silver has straight up said in his video that this is the most challenging LASO level of all time, and honestly, if it wasn't for some tricks, it probably wouldn't even be possible. Honestly, this is the level that is a big turning point in the overall Halo story, and it has the elites fighting off against the brutes, and you see pretty much the entire Covenant implode on itself, but when you're playing LASO, it turns into pretty much all of these enemies being ready and willing to just immediately kill you the second that they even get a hint that you exist. This level has not only really close corridors, but in the open sections there's a ton of snipers, and enemies are really quick to aggro you at any given chance, meaning that this level is just complete chaos. I mean, you have to worry about the elites and their swords and their quick to kill weapons. You have to worry about the buggers. You have to worry about grunts to brutes that will explode to hunters that have triple health. And you can't even pick up ammo easily, which really puts you at a disadvantage. You can try to rescue the Marines, they won't help you. But honestly, if you are determined that Halo 2 lassos for you, we might recommend you start on this level and just try to get it out of the way, because if you can complete Gravemind, maybe you can do anything in Halo. Going into Halo 3 is a really interesting challenge in its own right, just because this game focuses around brutes as the main enemy rather than elites, which does definitely change up the gameplay quite a bit. Fortunately enough, a lot of the skulls from Halo 2 Anniversary are not in Halo 3, meaning that you still have a really big challenge ahead of you, but you don't have maybe this impossible list of skulls you're facing. So for Halo 3, you still have Blind, Fog, Thunderstorm, Iron, Famine, Mythic, Black Eye, Catch, and Tilt, which is essentially the Whoopopotamus skull from Halo 2. But now you have to deal with the Tough Luck skull, which is where enemies will always dodge your shots and grenades. And of course, you can also use the silver skulls if you choose to in Halo 3. And we kind of skipped over those skulls just in this video because we're trying to keep things brief. We don't want to keep you guys here all day, but let's jump into Halo 3 and right away, welcome to Hell on Sierra 117. This level is just pretty much a pretty big challenge just because the level's extremely linear, not giving you a lot of wide open areas to try to avoid enemies and have different forms of cover. And it is a wave heavy level, meaning enemies are constantly being dropped and there's always kind of a large set of enemies in each section you move up to. This is kind of the first time you're facing off against the brutes as the main enemy, and they have brute shots which will do a lot of damage, and tie that with jackals that like to hide around and snipe you, and you're in for a pretty big challenge. Fortunately enough, there are some tricks to bypass a lot of this level, doing different types of glitches to get outside of the map and bypass some spawns of enemies, and you can even jump in the water for a little swim and bypass a little bit if you're quick enough. But whenever I try doing this in just a regular run, I still die, so I'm not too sure how this works here. But then of course, to make matters worse, there's a ton of enemies at the end of the level, between having snipers and even a brute that has a gravity hammer that will end your day. If you can manage to get this far in your Halo Lasso marathon that obviously you're doing in one sitting, right? Maybe you can make it to the end of this. But then we get to the Ark, and oh boy, is this a great experience. This level's really difficult because there's a lot of enemies early on, and you kind of have to find a way to navigate through them. But in the later section of the level, you're in this wide open area with vehicles that can just completely melt you at any given moment. Seriously, it just becomes one of the most chaotic levels, similar to Halo 2, but this time the vehicle version of that, because literally just everything wants you dead. There's the section later where there's wraiths and ghosts that want to just kill you at any given second, and you have to clear every enemy pretty much in this area to load the next part of the level. And there's parts in this level where it just feels like the game is waiting for you to turn the corner just to annihilate you, and it feels very unfair at times. And even when you're in a tank, you feel like you have nothing going for you in this Halo run. But you can keep pushing through. You can make it to the final outdoor area and pleasantly face off against all of these vehicle enemies that will melt your tank easily, and a scarab to top it all off. Just the lovely combination of Halo challenges that just make you want to absolutely die. However, if you can make your way past the tank, then you have an indoor section that is all close quarters combat with brutes that have brute shots and grunts that will throw sticky grenades and blow you up. Lovely. But bam, right after that, you're dropped in the Covenant, which is another really long level in Halo 3. Starting things off, you're dropped in the beach like you're in a real war, and it is so overwhelming how just you will get absolutely obliterated as soon as you touch down. There's enemies shooting at you in literally every direction. Your only hope is to maybe run out to the water and hope you can walk past the part and just say, nope, I'm gonna just try the rest of the level and not deal with any of that drama. And honestly, it doesn't get too much easier after that. There's so many sections in this level where you just have to hope that you can skip past the enemies and hope they don't see you, and use various hiding spots along the way to try to just get away from trying to fight, because there's just too many enemies and not enough ammo to go around and not enough health to keep yourself going. There's of course the section that has all of the brutes with a grav hammer brute as well, and while you can sidestep the brutes the best you can to assassinate them, having a brute that has a gravity hammer and has the ability to turn on invincibility can be a little bit threatening on a lasso run. And this level just doesn't stop there either. You have so many different sections to this level. There's a part where you have to fly a hornet and hope the banshees don't kill you, and even then you have to go through another section where the brutes are once again, make your way around, and then you're in a tank again, and you know how well that went in the last level. Then all of a sudden 2 scarabs drop, and you're just in for one of the best experiences of your life. Fortunately enough, after you clear all of that, you do the final sprint on the bridge, and you do have the flood helping you out, even though it doesn't feel like they're helping you out too much just because of how difficult it is. And on your fight back, they turn against you. So now you have to fight off the flood and try to make your way past a hallway, and with these skulls on, it's very easy to just quickly be drained of your health and die. I mean, look at this. The flood can just pile up and you're just stuck. Of course, after this, you'll be in for a fun surprise on Cortana. Fortunately enough, using a sword does help regenerate your health, so you actually probably can make your way through the rest of Halo 3 using a couple of tricks along the way. Though going into Halo 3 ODST, it's kind of interesting here. We won't talk too much about ODST because a lot of the strategies from Halo 3 can translate into ODST pretty well. You're not going to see an overly high challenge through most of the campaign. I mean, it's LASO, it's still going to be extremely difficult, but Coastal Highway is probably the best example of the overall Halo 3 ODST experience. You start off with some good old close quarters combat. You have these driving escort sections where you have to make sure that the Oliphant doesn't die in the process, which is just one extra thing you have to worry about. And of course, during that process, you want to make sure you don't get stuck, you don't get sniped, you don't get oofed by a ghost in the process. And to tie it all up in a nice bow, you have a good old firefight at the end of the level, testing everything you've learned from lassoing the rest of the campaign. Yeah, there's hunters, and this time around you're not a Spartan either, so you have to deal with the ODST health system, which definitely is a lot harder to survive as an ODST and not a Spartan, making the firefight at the end difficult enough. So good luck, guys. Halo Reach carries over the same skulls from Halo 3 and Halo 3 ODST, so if you're familiar with the system, that's great, but this time around elites are back into the mix, which definitely changes up the overall gameplay. Still, for the most part, a lot of the levels have some sort of formulaic approach where you can manage making your way slowly if you've played through the other ones already or you've used strategies you've learned. You systematically take out the enemies, sneak past others where you can, and honestly just take things slow like you need to on any lasso challenge, and you can push your way through and make some progress. You should be getting a good feeling of the overall system until you get to Long Night of Solace, rest in peace. Besides the outside chaos on the beach, when you get inside and you go up into outer space, you're in a whole new element where you're fighting off against spaceships and you can't lock on to enemies, and when the phantoms start to show up, they're ready just to wreck your day at any given moment. And honestly, once you get inside the ship, it doesn't get that much easier because there's some really high, powerful enemies inside that will completely destroy you, and your best bet is to just hide for cover and hope you can slowly inch your way through this next section. There's actually a part where just enemies will fully swarm the room you're holding out towards the end, and there's a strategy to use crates to kind of stop them from getting to you, which is just this outside of the box thinking that we really like to cover, just because what do you do when the enemies are too strong? You try to stop them with a box. But if you struggled along this level, we still have to look at the Pillar of Autumn, the final level of Halo Reach LASO, unless you count good old Lone Wolf. I bet that level's really hard to beat. And honestly, the best strategy in this level, despite the fact that throughout the other Halo levels your best bet is to try to find other ways to get around enemies at times, here your best bet's actually to just take your time and methodically pick off the enemies in the opening area. Oh, and throughout that there's a Wraith that will constantly shoot at you because, you know, extra challenge. Actually, now that I'm thinking back, I remember going for a lasso on this level back in 2011 when it was one of the weekly challenges on Halo Reach, and we got so far, we got all the way to the hunters and then we gave up, and that was about 4 hours, so that's why I have a bad experience with lassos. Still, somehow Silver just manages to do all of these by himself for fun. Anyways, when you get to the section with the caves, there's a ton of buggers, but as we've learned actually from the speedrunning videos, you can skip the buggers by bypassing it, doing a little trick on the cave wall, which definitely helps because buggers are not to be messed with here. As we saw Silver complete this, turns out you can despawn those hunters. Wish I knew that 9 years ago, but live and learn. Still, as you progress, there are a ton of enemies, and they have a lot of different types of scripting written into the game that really will impact how they affect you and how they come after you and when they aggro you and where they aggro you to. And you have to be really aware as to what's going on so you can make sure you somehow can keep alive in these areas where there's so many enemies. I mean, there's a section where there's an elite that has dual-wield plasma rifles that can completely melt any player. However, there is a little bit of a reward at the end of the Pillar of Autumn level, as you can have a little bit of fun if you've managed to do the lassos for all of Halo. Yes, this level is extremely hard, but once you get to the end, you can kind of mess around a little bit. You can hide easily during the firefights and pick off enemies if you want. You can go up to the Mac Cannon early. You can have a field day. Now, when it's time for you to actually use the Mac Cannon, you gotta be careful because those phantoms will mess you up, but your best bet is to wait for the time where Keys tells you to shoot and then just quickly jump on the Mac Cannon and finish this level and complete Halo Reach Lasso as well. Oh boy, was this a doozy to go through, because honestly, Lasso is such an impressive challenge to just look at overall. Seriously, just looking back at this video alone, it definitely feels like maybe we made Lasso sound way easier than it really is, and we know you see footage of it on your screen seeing how difficult it actually is, but trust us, it's actually way harder than it looks here, and we know it looks bad. For brevity's sake, we didn't go into Halo 4 or Halo 5 Guardians just yet because we thought containing it just to the Bungie Halos would be best for this video, and we'll probably revisit this topic soon in the future, maybe after Halo Infinite's release, because there's definitely some really interesting things going on in those lassos as well that are actually different from the things that you see in the Bungie Halos. But if you guys liked this video, please show some support to Silver, the Halo completionist, link in the description down below, because if you're looking to finally beat Lasso or just get some of those harder Halo achievements, this is the #1 place you should go to. On the other hand, if you enjoy this content and you like us breaking down any type of interesting run, whether you've seen this video as your first video or you've seen us pop up and recommended, maybe you can consider hitting the subscribe button finally with notifications on so you know every time we upload a video, because we're always trying to up the level of our content and continue to make things that are interesting. But that's it for today, guys. We'll see you all next time with a brand new video. Bye, guys.